Alright, so let's do a tomato plant update. Let me show you some of what I got going on and show you the progress and talk a little bit about these plants and how the soil's doing and whatnot. But so far so good. This is the video I did the review on the plant where you see me planting it in the container and I show you how to do the DIY 5-gallon buckets. I redid that video, and this is the plant that we put in there, and you can see that it's got some pretty good height on it. I can't see inside the screen, but it's got some height on it. It's coming up good. That's a Lowe's pepper plant. I figured I'd try something from Lowe's this year, and that way I was able to make the video, so I used their plant. So that didn't come from seed, but I'm going to keep the seed from that. But it's very healthy, very beautiful color green, as you can see. And I'm going to be doing a video soon about suckering and what I do with my suckers and how I sucker my plants, so I will be doing a video on that soon. Also, these plants here, they're actually doing quite well, to be honest with you. They are literally tripled in size since the last video I shot. I did a video where take a look at some of my tomato plants I'm growing for 2018. I'll leave a link in the description or the end scenes. But I did that video and I showed you what they look like. So between that time of that video, which was roughly shot that day and uploaded, I believe, that day. So somewhere between that time and now is how much these plants have grown. And they're doing quite well. I'm very pleased with their progress. There is some small insect damage on my leaves from here, a little bit, you can see from here. And that is from the flea beetles. I had a small little flea beetle outbreak over here, and I had to eradicate most of them by hand. So I didn't spray them, but I crushed them up when I looked for them. You know, I kept coming out here every day, 2-3 times a day, and I look for them, wait for them to show up on the leaves, and then I would remove them. So that was a little bit of a flea beetle problem. But outside of that, so far so good. No late blight, no early blight, except for one plant. I'll show you that, and I'll show you how the plant responded to it. But like some of the damage you see down here, that's from insects. That's not from blight or anything. I had a little bit of flea beetle issue there, but we straightened that out. So it looks like I don't really see too many more of them. And I don't really know where they could be coming from because we're so far away from the garden and where they would be back there. Maybe they're jumping on my shirt when I'm in the garden and I'm bringing them up. Maybe I'm the vector. I don't know. But they were here and they were coming up and they were starting to do damage. So we got that under control, I think, pretty good right now. So I don't see any more, but every now and again you will see some chewing on the leaves. You know, you're just going to get that. It's not, there's no way to completely avoid it. So I'm just basically showing you, what everything looks like. That's a pepper plant, lunchbox pepper from Lowe's. So I did that one too. Figured I had one more pail left. I would put a pepper in there. But I primarily wanted to keep all my tomatoes in these pails this year. Most of them. I mean, my greenhouse is filled with tomatoes, but I wanted all my pails to just be tomatoes. So that's why they're all tomatoes, and that's just one pepper. So yeah, they're doing good. I mean, some of these things are probably 3 feet in height already. Like this one here is probably 3 feet. I got another 1 or 2 there. That's about 3 feet height. Yeah, some of them aren't quite as tall, but they're all doing pretty good. You can see a little bit of mottling on the leaves. Some of them are getting some mottling. I did give them a boost of fertilizer, so you can see a tiny bit of mottling. But that's like on the lower leaves. Some of the upper leaves did it a little bit too. I was giving them some Epsom salt and some other stuff, and that may have been a little too rich for the plant because the soil is super soil, so it doesn't really need any fertilizer. I just wanted to give them a good growing boost to really get them established before any kind of diseases kick in. You really want to get them up big and fast, quickly, before the blight kicks in. So, and once the blight kicks in, it's degradation on the plant. It starts to slow down and the growth really starts to, taper back, and it's got to go through the fruiting stage. So you really want to focus on the plant's structure and growth first. So that was my main intention. I just wanted to get it up and going, and I gave it a little bit of fertilizer. That's probably should have maybe not. I may have overdone it just a little bit. But yeah, they're all doing good. Here's a potato leaf variety, and they're doing quite well. Some of these potato leaves are almost as big as my hand, which is a really good sign because that means the plant is doing very healthy. And it looks like an aphid right there. That means it's doing really healthy. This is the yellow brandywine too. And that's going to make some big tomatoes, that means, this year. So I'm probably going to get some pretty decent sized tomatoes out of that plant. And over here is another regular leaf plant, and it's just doing perfectly healthy. I mean, look at the color on it. It's perfect. It's not too dark, and it's not too yellow. Yes, the yellows are a little bit high right now. They're a little bit on the yellowish side, and the reason for that is because of the fertilizer kicking in. But that could just be because it's just doing really well. I mean, you can see my forsythias right here. They're bright yellow, too, on the tip. So the sun has really been out quite a bit. It's a good shady day. You know, for the last 2 or 3 days, it's been kind of cloudy and shady. So it's kind of giving them a break a little bit off the sun, because that sun is absolutely torturous at times. But they're growing great in it. Really hot sun. This is the glacier tomato. This one's doing really good. Most people have a lot of problems with the glacier tomato, and the reason for that is because the glacier tomato really don't like warm air at all. It really likes cooler temperatures. So this tomato tends to be a lot of problem for people. So if I have a problem with this tomato anytime during the year, remember it's in a pail, so I can always grab that pail and just move it to a different part of the yard, maybe in more shade, take it out of the hot sun. But so far it's already got tomatoes on it. So I mean, it's really doing perfectly fine. I don't need to do anything with it. Some more of them. Here's a weeping leaf type of tomato. I call it weeping because the leaves like to hang down and weep. At least in the beginning they do. More of my tomatoes. And we got this right here. I forgot what that one was. That is the chocolate stripes. Yeah, the one I got from Lowe's is, I think, chocolate sprinkles, and this one's called chocolate stripes. They're totally different tomatoes. Even though they sound very similar, they're actually different tomatoes, but I will be doing reviews on them individually. This is from the Wild Wonders tomatoes. I kept some of the seeds. These are the white grape, I believe. So we're going to see how the white grapes develop from the store-bought seeds. So far, developing very nicely. A little bit of purpling in the stem, but that could just be the genetics of the plant. That doesn't mean that its soil's imbalanced. Usually when you see purpling in the stem, that's usually not really bad, but if it's really, really purple, then that's not a good sign. But sometimes you'll see purpling in stems due to the simple nature. Like, for example, this one here. This is the Cosmic Eclipse. This plant tends to get a lot of purpling in the stem, throughout the stems. Like you can see on one of the leaf stems right there, it's very purple. A lot of times later in the season, once it starts fruiting, this stem will get very purple and put out a very interesting odor, like a different kind of a smell. So that's a Cosmic Eclipse. And there's some varieties that will purple up like that a little bit. So that's not something always to worry about. Here's some more of my tomatoes. This one's pushing about 3 feet right now. This one's pretty tall. And this is only a few weeks old. I mean, these plants have been hammering now. See, like this could be because I put a little bit of fertilizer in the soil. So again, I'm getting a little bit of an imbalance in the soil because I was a little over anxious to get them growing. But it's not bad. It's not hurting the plant or anything. It seems to be all right. But some of the lower leaves are showing a little bit of mottling, maybe a little bit of nutrient imbalance. But most of the other plants I'm not having that issue with. Here's one we're going to review. You're going to like this one. I've been growing this for a few years. This is a Indeterminate variety. This is called a fern, what is it called? Silvery fir. But it's a fern leaf type of tomato. So I have grown it. You really got to put this thing kind of by itself and put a lot of time and dedication into it, because I didn't have a lot of luck with it. It really wants a lot of attention. So this year we're going to give it more attention. We're going to go over that tomato plant. I'm going to talk about that one. And here's some more wild cherries. Again, these are not lycopersicum tomatoes. They're something else. I got to look up the name before I do the reviews and kind of give you more details on it. But that's a wild variety of tomato, and I got to talk about that one a little bit. Now, this is the one that I was talking about earlier. got some early blight in the beginning, a little bit, and it seemed to have wiped it out to some degree. So it looks like it got to it, and I'm pretty happy about that. You can't see it anymore, but it got a little bit of early blight on the leaves in the beginning, and then it just stopped. I removed 1 or 2 of the leaves that had it while it was still like fresh. So I removed those leaves and just left it alone, and it seems to be fine. Came back nicely. It wasn't dying or anything, but you can see that the early blight was kicking in. And yes, you can tell the difference between early blight and late blight. So this was the late blight that kicked in, not early blight. This is the late blight that kicked in. You see some of the damage from the late blight came in early. So it's not always late in the year that you get late blight. You can get it early in the year. And let's see what else we got here. And then just some of these tomatoes. And then I'll take you a walk in the back, and I'll just show you what's going on in the greenhouse with my tomatoes. These are doing really good. These are really, really doing good. I'm having to tie them up, as you can see, because if it rains and these aren't tied up, it'll lay all these plants down flat. So I have to constantly tie them, like every 8 inches they grow in height. I got to wrap a new string around this stick, and then you know, keep tying them up as they grow, because again, the rain comes, it'll either snap them or they will lay down, and we don't want that. So all right, so let's take a walk into the greenhouse and we'll see what's going on in the greenhouse with my tomatoes. All right, so here are my tomatoes in the greenhouse, and yes, I know they're a little crowded in here. I really don't want to leave them this way, so I may end up having to move some of these over into this section of the greenhouse. I'm going to leave them in pots, and I'm just going to kind of bury them a little bit inside the those containers, so I may end up doing that. But I don't want to get too, you know, I don't want them to get too settled in, because if I have to move, I got to rip all these things out and move them with me, because they're not staying here. Some of these varieties of tomatoes, I don't even think I have seeds left to them. So I want to make sure that I'm able to move them. That's why I'm not planting nothing in the ground, and I'm kind of leaving everything in pots, and it's kind of crowded and messy because I need to be able to move my stuff quickly in the event the house sells. So I'm only going to have 2 weeks to move everything, and this is one of the things I got to move. That's going to take at least a day with several trips to move it to wherever I'm going. So yeah, these are my tomatoes in my greenhouse. These things are absolutely growing humongous. Most of these are probably 3 feet already. Some of them are stunting a little bit. Not stunting, but they're not really growing because they're really getting crowded out here, and they really need more light in the area to grow. And it's just, I'm cramped everything in here. I probably got 25 or 30 tomato pots in here, and each one has 4 plants in it. It's just way too much cramped into one area. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster right there. So I do got to do something with this pretty soon. I can't leave that. And I got some tomato plants here. See, I started moving them over to here. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to move a bunch of them into here and just keep them in the pots and just sit them in here for now. Just leave it like that. Let them grow down into the soil below it, and that way, if I need to move, at least I could just pull a pot out, and I'm not having to put it through transplant shock and everything. I could just pull it out. Yeah, the lower roots will get damaged, but at least I can pull the pot out and move it, and the plant is still intact, and then I can, you know, maybe transplant it wherever I move. So I have those in here. I have other ones that popped up, like volunteers that came up. You can see they're all along the edge. And again, I'm not really doing anything in here because, you know, I may end up having to move, so I'm not really putting a lot of energy into my tomato plants in here. But I got some popping up over there. Now, most of these over here are probably going to be all Everglade tomatoes, but a lot of these other ones that are popping up around the edges of this thing and over there, and I got some popping up over here now. All of these tomatoes that are randomly popping up in odd spots, those are probably not Everglade tomatoes. Those are probably from other tomatoes I grew in the past, so that's why I'm letting them grow. Now, this is probably an Everglade tomato, but it's growing perfectly healthy. I'll probably end up leaving that for the owner, let them have that one. Or maybe I'll dig it up and transplant it. Or see there's other tomatoes popping up here. I got them randomly popping up because all my pots are sitting on soil. And in that soil was just regular potting soil from last year, and all kinds of tomatoes dropped off and died and dried. And then when you break it up the next year, the seeds get dispersed, and now they're popping up. So I got them popping up, and I'm probably gonna plant a lot of the suckers that I get in the garden here this year. So whatever suckers I do get out of it, and I do, you know, get them to root, I'll probably plant those because I'm not going to be worried about moving them. And then the new owner, at least they got some plants to play around with. There's some tomato plants there. These are probably Everglades tomatoes. All of these tomatoes just randomly popping up all over the place. Those are probably all Everglade tomatoes. And they're all over the garden. So there's tomatoes all over the place around here. Now, it probably looks like I'm growing more tomatoes than I probably need to, but I eat a lot of tomatoes this time of year in summertime. So for this many tomatoes, at least 30% of them get wasted. Bug damage, animals, things like that, diseases, they get on the tomato. I'm not going to eat those. At least 30%. So if I'm growing 100 plants, 30 of those plants roughly will be wasted. So that's why I have to be really redundant with tomatoes up here and just grow as many as I can. That way I get a decent, you know, harvest. And if I get more than that, then I sell them. Then it's worth me putting out a table out front and selling them. But yeah, I grow a lot of tomatoes, and that's why, because a lot of them get ruined, destroyed, wasted. And, you know, you lose a large crop, you know, a large portion of your crop every year on tomatoes. Now peppers are a little bit different, but on tomatoes, yeah, you're going to get you know, you're going to get quite a bit of losses up in this neighborhood here. You kind of need to have a field of tomatoes growing to get a decent, you know, crop to be able to sell. Like these few tomatoes and all that I grow, believe me, there's not enough to sell because, like I say, a lot of them get damaged, they fall off, they don't all ripen at the same time, so you got to harvest what's ready, and then it's a lot of work. That's why tomatoes are so expensive in the store, because there's a lot that goes into growing the tomatoes, harvesting and shipping them, and, you know, giving you a product that you can you know, you can buy in the store and eat. I even got tomatoes popping up all around the outside of my thing here. These are all Everglade tomatoes. All those tomatoes all growing along the edge of my fence, those are all Everglades. I got some there. Those, I'm telling you, those Everglade tomatoes, they're unbelievable. They get everywhere. I would definitely classify them almost as an invasive species, because once they establish themselves, they will reseed and grow every year. Eventually, birds will eat those little tomatoes, and then they'll start spreading everywhere. But they're a good plant. They're a good plant to have because they do produce food, and they produce food for animals, and they produce food for humans. So it's good all the way around. I don't think it's that bad of a invasive species, but at the same time, it can be invasive because these things will pop up all over the place. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick look at the tomatoes. I'll go over each variety when we get close to reviewing them. Hopefully it's not going to be right around when I'm moving or I'm selling the house and I'm going to move out. That's going to be really, really difficult. I'm not sure how that's even going to work out. I mean, I don't even know where I'm going to move these tomato plants. I just know I got to move them. So we'll see how that works out, and we'll see how everything plays itself out, and we'll go from there. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.